In this episode of the Mo Money podcast, we're talking about how to recession-proof your finances. With all of the noise out there around the globe at the moment, it's seeming like more and more people are asking the question if we are headed towards a recession, technical or otherwise. Maybe we are, maybe we aren't. But either way, there are a few things that you can do now to put yourself in the strongest position to give you peace of mind to ride out any potential storm that might be coming. And they're also things that put you in a strong financial position for when we're not in a recessionary environment as well. This episode is perfect for anyone that wants to have more peace of mind around their money.
Welcome to Mo Money, where we bring you practical tips, hacks, strategies, and the knowledge to level up your money game and replace your salary by investing.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Mo Money podcast. And today we're talking about how to recession-proof your finances. A lot of talk of the R word out there at the moment. Will it happen? Will it not happen? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But either way, there are some things that you can do to set yourself up so that if we end up in a recession, technical or prolonged, that, you know, it minimizes, at least, you can't eliminate, but minimizes the financial blowback. William?
Well, I think recession's everyone's favorite word, sarcastically. But there's a lot of forecasts now saying the recession's effectively a 50% chance. But like you said, there's lots of things that you can do to make sure that you don't get caught out by it. And it's like anything. You need to plan for these things and prepare for these things. What they're saying, to prepare for the worst, hope for the best. So what we do now and how we start planning and getting ready for these type of things will have a massive impact if a recession comes, to make sure that you're well equipped to really push through it.
Absolutely, yeah. And we should just call out that there's really two types of recession. The technical definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of negative economic growth. So basically, if the economy contracts instead of growing, and it does that for 2 quarters in a row, that is the technical definition of a recession. We just saw that New Zealand have just ended up in a technical recession. They had the second quarter. I'm not actually sure what the stats were for the first quarter, but their second quarter economic performance was negative 0.1%. Now that is technically a recession, but it's not a recession where, you know, unemployment's 20% and, you know, it takes years and years to recover from. That's like a hardcore recession, which is also meets the technical definition of recession. But there is a difference there as well. So in Australia, we may end up in a recession that is technical, and we could also end up in a full-blown recession. Like, that's always a possibility, I think, in any market. That, to me, seems less likely, and the government have shown us through the last couple of recessionary type environments that they're pretty prepared to step in and make sure, because there's some serious negative blowback for the government when there is a hardcore recession. But either way, I think whether we have a blip, whether we have a hard-out recession, or whether we don't have a recession and manage to avoid it at all, that there are some things that you can do to put yourself in the best financial position possible to ride out that storm and do it with as limited stress as possible. Now, what's driving this, I suppose, is obviously interest rates way on the up, and the inflation crisis that everyone's probably sick of hearing about and having to deal with. Sick of hearing about it, sick of having to pay, my PT was telling me $5.50 for a packet of twisties at Coles. So that's the first time he's seen them over $5.
It's an odd thing coming from a PT. I just thought they weren't allowed to eat twisties.
I know, yeah, and cheese as well. I'm like, chicken, bro. That's
chicken, rice and veggies. That's what it should be, isn't it?
No. I mean chicken twisties.
Cheese.
It's
both.
Yeah, I'm more of a chicken guy.
Off on a bit of a tangent there.
But anyway, so inflation is up. Look, rates are up, and the recent commentary is coming out. The RBA is sounding like they're taking a fairly hard line around inflation, also catching up with the global interest rate. So it's possible. I hope not, but it's possible that we'll get a couple more interest rate rises in Australia before the RBA push pause on that and let them actually wind through and do their thing. But at the same time, we're seeing unemployment, like the recent unemployment stats have come out showing that unemployment is at an ultra low level. In fact, it's just trended back down. We've got more people in work, working more hours, and the participation rate is higher. The jobless rate is down. So Yeah, it's a really a lot of like sort of contradictory messages happening in the economy.
And I think that's key. Don't get scared by the word recession. I think so many people get scared by it. But when we look at the stats, unemployment's still at record lows. Like, as you said, it just dropped. Yeah, just make sure you don't, get too terrified by these type of things. Like a technical recession, it might not be the worst thing in the world when we've still got super low unemployment. Obviously it can be difficult for some people, but for the majority of people, it might not be,
as much of a thing.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I think so. There's a few things that we'll unpack that you can do to set yourself up to essentially recession-proof your finances as much as possible. The first and the biggest one here, and it's not as much a financial thing, but it does have a big financial impact, is making sure you're highly employable. By far and away, the biggest negative impact of a recession for most people is if you lose your job and you lose your income. Simple as that. The income stops, then you got to live off savings, hard to make ends meet, potentially forced to sell investments, all of these sorts of things, all really difficult things to deal with. It can seriously stuff up your finances. So making sure that you're as employable as possible, that you're putting yourself in a position so you hold on to your job, that is really, think 80-20 rule. That's 80% of the work done right there. So, if you're working in a company, make sure you're the best person in your team. Be really, really nice to your boss.
Kiss ass.
Don't take 5 weeks leave to jaunt off around Europe, maybe.
Don't know who's doing that. But it's easier said than done sometimes to be highly employable. But it's like if you just start doing small things, like upskill yourself, do a course if you can. Make sure, like, if possible, you're staying on top of things, taking on extra tasks. Like, it's sometimes easier said than done. But the more effort that you put in now, if we do enter a recession, you're going to be the star person that they're not going to, have to get rid of if they have to get rid of someone, because your performance for the last 6 months has been fantastic.
But also that if you do have to leave your job, choose to, or are pushed, to know that you can get another job quite quickly. So like we've had some clients where they work in a particular space, maybe it's something like marketing, and they see in the marketing space that a real growth area is in, I don't know, TikTok videos or something like that. So then they'll start to get involved in that, either in their current role or do a little, side course, start building some skills, start playing around with it, so that that you've got those skills there, that if you do need to leave your job, then you're able to just pick up another job fairly quickly and keep consistency of your income there. That's, as I said, that's probably the biggest one, that if you can ensure that your income continues as much as possible, you're really a long way there.
Yeah.
The next piece is making sure that you've got a good emergency fund cash buffer. And cash is king here with this stuff. So understanding what how much you need in your emergency fund, making sure that you've got enough there to cover your bills if you do, if your income does stop, and your mortgage payments and rent and that sort of stuff, particularly if you've got a mortgage and because interest rates are high. That's an important part. You can check out actually our previous episode of the podcast where we unpacked how to figure out, what your emergency fund should be and how to actually set that up as well if you need a little bit more guidance around that. But take the time, if you've done it recently, great, maybe just check in on it, make sure that your number's right, make sure that it's there. And then that way you'll have peace of mind that what you're doing is absolutely bang on.
Yeah, look, and I think that, like you've said, losing your job is usually that first domino that knocks everything over. The second one is then you depleting your cash in your emergency fund. So if you've got a solid emergency fund there and for some reason you do lose your job, it could get you through that period until you find a new one, then you're okay. The thing is, you don't want to have not enough in your emergency fund. Recession kicks in, we lose our job, we deplete the emergency fund, and then you need to start selling off investments. You've got to start selling off your shares or even properties or whatever it might be. That's what we don't want to be. That's when it really starts to snowball negatively and you start to get into that downward spiral, and that's what we want to avoid.
Absolutely. And look, as much as we're talking about how to recession-proof your finances, keep in mind that another thing, like if you want to make sure that you come through at this period of uncertainty in a stronger position, you want to invest as much as humanly possible, but without compromising on any of these critical things for your money. So we're not saying don't invest. We're not saying just hoard cash and keep it all under a mattress, because if you do that, you're probably missing out on a bunch of opportunities as well. But those two things are really quite critical. And tying into that, and it's sort of implied, but it's worth mentioning, is making sure that you're clear on your cash flow. So your spending and savings plan, how much money do you actually need? And now is a perfect time, if you're not already all over, your cash flow management and savings system, make sure you are, because that's going to tell you exactly how much money you actually need to live. Also, if you do need to change jobs or anything like that, you'll be rock solid on your numbers and know exactly what they are. If you're just spending all your money from a credit card and some weeks you spend, a little bit, some weeks or months you spend a lot, again, it's going to be really hard for you to get confidence that what you've got is actually enough.
Yeah, and it's a good time now too, with the odds of a recession at 50-50, to have a good look through your budget. And if you can, tighten the screws a little bit, anywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. Look at those comparison sites for your utilities and insurances. Those markets are highly competitive. Shop around, make sure you're getting the best deal. Look at your expenses and think, there's some changes that you can make in your expenses that are short term and can happen immediately and have an immediate impact. There are other things that might take longer but have a bigger impact as well. Upskilling your career is one of them, changing where you live, how you live, how much you pay for rent, housing, those sorts of things as well. Transport, often it will take a little bit of work to get there, but it can make a shift. And sometimes, having a situation forced on you a little bit forces you to adapt quite quickly. And then you often surprise yourself on what you could do, and things that you didn't think were possible before, you realize that they actually are. So it can be a good opportunity to revisit things with that sort of lens, and make sure that you're, making moves now that benefit you now, protect you now, but they're probably the same things that are going to help you to make smarter decisions and get better results into the future as well. So those are the big things there. Make sure you're employable, emergency fund full, be clear on your cash flow, and make sure that you're never forced to sell investments, particularly if we do end up in a recession. It's likely that investment markets might cop a bit of a blip as a result. So do that. But at the same time, you want to be investing as much as possible. Now, we just covered on the podcast the bull market rally in the share market, what's going on there, how to choose good investments. So check that out if you want to dive a little bit deeper. But ultimately, keep yourself in the mindset that you should be trying to invest as much as you can, but without compromising on any of the things that we've already covered off here.
Yeah, and then just finally too, don't get too caught up in the noise. As we said, a recession, it could not, might not be the end of the world for most people. And that technical recession, that technical definition, a lot of people see the word recession and they freak out. I don't think we're going to be heading for anything too prolonged or anything too crazy, but it's always best to prepare.
Absolutely, and I think if you follow these points, then you should be able to have a lot of peace of mind. You can ignore, I'm not saying ignore the news, but you can ignore those headlines, know that you've got your bases covered and that you can ride out any potential storm that might come. Guys, we'll leave it there for this week and we'll catch you next time.
Till next time, guys.
Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Mo Money, and we hope you picked up some knowledge to help make your money easier. This podcast was recorded on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we celebrate and pay our respects to elders past, present, and future. Now, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast to get future episodes delivered to you directly. And if you're ready to save more, invest smart, and maximize your money, head over to www.pivotwealth.com.au, where you can level up your money knowledge and get clear on your next steps. Helping people with this sort of stuff is our jam. So if you get stuck or need a hand to move forward, you know where we live. And we'll be back here with another episode really soon.